So now that we're on YouTube, and of course we have people that still watch our ugly mugs here online and all that.
I don't know why.
Whatever. I do have to give a shout out to another fellow YouTuber. YouTuber.
No website?
Yeah, there you go, okay. YouTuber. Yeah, tongue-tied today. Fred Flintstone 21 on YouTube.
Nice.
Saved my butt today. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give him 50% credit.
Okay.
Because, so here's what happened. I don't know if you knew Project Excursion. I've been having issues for a little bit of time, like maybe 3 or 4 years, with the Windows and the radio just intermittently dying.
I know you did with the radio, not with the Windows, though.
So the radio goes on and off. The Windows do the same thing, but not always at the same time. It's one or the other.
Interesting.
Kind of thing. Well, today, at lunchtime, I go through McDonald's. I'm coming back. Window will not go up. And usually within 5 or 10 minutes, whatever relay or whatever the issue is pops, or I don't know what the term would be, but it starts working again. Resets. I have messed with this thing. I've looked online. I've looked everywhere. So today I just started Googling things, and this guy's video showed up. He's got this short video on YouTube, and he explains the exact same problem I've been having. And he doesn't really give a fix for it because he says it's something to do with a battery saver relay that's in the instrument cluster.
Okay.
That you have to have the instrument cluster rebuilt to do.
Yeah.
And apparently, as these excursions age, it's starting to become a more common problem. Well, he had a quick workaround where you pull out the relay that's in the fuse panel, and you just run a keyed hot to it. And he said, you know, your stuff will start working again, but you're not going to have a delay or something. I don't remember exactly what in the video what he said.
Yeah.
So I made up a little jumper wire real quick. I always carry that stuff in the back of Project Excursion. Plugged it in. Boom, I got Windows and radio again immediately.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh, man, this thing, 3-4 years of this thing. And I even played with it. I would unplug my little jumper. Everything dies. Plug it back in. Everything's working. I'm like, nice. Sweet. I've done a workaround.
Yeah.
On my way here, of course, to do the podcast, the radio goes out again. Windows are still working. So I'm going to give him 50% credit because my windows are working now, but I'm not sure if I actually have corrected the issue or whatnot. So if anyone out there in our podcast land has a Excursion or a Super Duty that's doing the same thing, Project Excursion's an 03 with a 7.3 diesel, where the windows and the radio work intermittently, and you've got some other idea, let us know. But,
well, let you know.
Yeah,
I mean, if you let me know, I'll forward the information.
Yeah, or somebody hopefully finds out. But I think we have other things we want to talk about today, John, don't we?
Yeah, a few.
All right, let's do it.
Yep.
It's time to hit the trail, lock in those hubs, and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin with Keith and Johnny Orange, broadcasting from the Thin Line Off-Road Studio. They're here to talk about 4x4s, trucks, and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Buckle up. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
So we are on episode 41 now.
Correct.
I'm not mistaken
Episode 41, which I'm amazed that we've made it this far.
I am too, and one particular person hasn't shot us yet.
Yeah, well, after all the technical troubles he had this week, he was just telling us it took, producer Andrew took about 5 hours to get last week's YouTube and podcast and everything all put together, and we're forever grateful, buddy. We really appreciate it. I know it's a pain in the butt.
He probably had to run out and get more beer just to tolerate listening to us for that amount of time.
Yeah, probably.
So 41 in our plan numbers is a pretty significant year in just the evolution of four-wheel and off-road in general. That's kind of the gist of what we talk about, but 41 is probably the start of the beginning. Yes, that's a double negative, I realize, as I say that out loud.
Okay, all right. So We already talked about this, so it's not a surprise to me. So I don't need to fake that this is a surprise with the 41.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the Patreon episode last week, which if you're not listening to us on Patreon yet, go to Patreon, look up Wheelin with the little apostrophe at the end of it, no G, and you'll find our show for as little as $2 a month. You can listen to us on there to the after show, which is really a continuation of our regular episodes. You get about another 20 to 30 minutes of material. Check it out, folks. But going back to that, 41 is the year that is credited as being the very first year of the Jeep.
Yes. Yep. The Willys MA, as it was called.
Now, why? I get that 41 was maybe the first production year, but prototypes go back into 40.
Yep, in the 1940. So they wanted the government wanted a quarter-ton light reconnaissance vehicle built to the Army specifications that they could use for war.
Yeah.
So the three companies, Bantam, Willys, and Ford, were the only three that responded to build such a contraption. And within a year, they produced the template for it, and the whole design was completed in 75 days. They made 2 prototypes.
Now, that would
That's
have
it.
been the Ford Pygmy and the Willys
Quad.
Quad, it was called?
Yep.
And then the Bantam, what was Bantam's called? Not the MA or something like that?
I don't
Or no?
remember on that.
Well, I'm not going to profess to be a super wartime Jeep guru here, and I actually have little stories about why that is. But I would like to talk about this about the wartime Jeeps and 41. Now, so you're saying in 40 they had all these prototypes out there, and it was something like, and I've got your notes in front of me, but there's not saying it. I'm just going off my memory.
So that was a spec sheet, and that's available online.
Okay.
I didn't happen to. It's a PDF copy of a build spec sheet or tech spec sheet that they had out there for them.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's all the really technical information on it.
In your research, these are just a couple of things that I remember reading about. I thought originally the government said they wanted like 20% of these to have rear wheel steering for some reason. And
That I don't recall.
they also wanted 6-wheel drive versions.
I don't remember reading
with
that.
an extra axle. There's a bunch of weird stuff out there. When you look at the
There are. I've got almost 14 pages worth of information here, and I've only sorted maybe a third of that out. It's just too overwhelming with how much there is.
yeah, there's a lot of weird different things in there.
Yes.
And so I don't want to sit here and pretend that we're some sort of expert on these.
No. There's books dedicated
I'm
to
a
this
fan
stuff.
though. I
Absolutely, they're cool.
I love the 9-slot grill Jeeps.
Yeah,
which
those are neat.
and that is
You don't still have that one, do you?
no.
I remember you had that 43 and you got that one for it. It was
Well,
a
no.
repo though, wasn't it?
I had a 43 Ford GPW.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I had a 41 slack grill Jeep, and that was like
Is that the one that I remember then?
it was just a basket case.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna you chop the bed in half. You're gonna make a rat rod thing out of it or something.
Yeah, and okay, before Jeep historians out there and Jeep purists start to just absolutely cringe, this thing
It was trashed.
in hindsight, somebody would have put it back knowing the rarity of it. If I remember right off the top of my head, it was serial number 4,000 something. It was like the 4,000 something
Nice.
Jeep that had ever been built.
Nice.
And I didn't know that at the time when I purchased it. Of course, I figured this out via the serial numbers later on. It was missing the grill, missing the windshield frame.
I was
And
missing a lot.
Yeah, when I got it, but I knew it had the Willys stamped into the tailgate, or into the back, but no tailgate. So I knew it was
Yeah.
a wartime Jeep. And
My favorite was still the machine gun mount on the frame.
oh yeah,
Got the bed off, and there's just a machine gun mount just welded right to the frame on it.
I think they
That was
all had
cool.
that during the war. I could be wrong.
It was an optional thing.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was.
Okay.
I could be wrong, Ethan. But-
Yeah. And this thing had been welded on and boogered up and all that
Oh,
over
yeah.
the
I know
years.
one of the original VIN plates or build plate was welded over.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember looking at it a little bit. I didn't know or understand a lot about anything back then. No, I was still, scrounging for stock parts out of a scrapyard one that you had in the yard at the time.
Yeah. No, I get that. That was a very lucrative deal for me because I
that
remember
part.
when I purchased that, I purchased it online, and this would have been probably 15 years ago.
Long?
Maybe. I don't know. It was right around when you and I first started hanging out.
Around 2008, 2009.
Yeah, right.
No, been 2009.
Okay.
Either 9 or 10, because I was working on my Jeep at the time.
Okay.
When it was at your place still. I remember
So,
that.
yeah, 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
I purchased this thing, and at the time I was married, and, my wife at the time, I showed her the picture of it. I said, we're driving 4 hours north to go pick this thing up, sight unseen, that I just purchased for $300. And
That's such a bad joke. I want to
she
make right now,
looks at this thing. What?
Is that why you said you were married back then?
Well, there's a lot of my shenanigans. I'll admit that. There's other reasons too, but
Just wait till we take a break to hit me or yell at me for that one.
yeah. So, I says, well, I'm going to buy this thing. She says, what are you doing with it? And I says, it's a deal through the business. Mm-hmm. Going to part it out, whatever's left. And she's like, well, there's no engine, there's no transmission. It's just a rotted. The tub was rotted in
They
half.
had a trans.
No, tub was rotted in half.
Yeah.
And
So
so
that tub was bad.
yeah, so we drive all the way up, load this thing up. It's full of leaves, to the top of the tub. Load it up, bring it back home. I'm looking at this thinking even to myself, what did I get into?
Yeah.
Well, I started digging through it, and there's things like the first 5,000 Jeeps all had all the knobs and everything on the dashboard were brass, and then the government eventually told them, hey, we need the brass for other things, just make them out of steel.
Nice.
It also had a gas gauge, which was an option on only the very first Jeeps during the war, and then they got rid of the gas gauge.
Yeah.
And there was a number of little things like that, but all these parts were there still, and I started throwing them on eBay and parting it out. And all in all, over a couple-month period, I think I made $4,000 or $5,000 off of the parts from this slack grill Jeep.
Yeah.
So that was kind of neat. But back to these, talking at the beginning of these things, and that was kind of a long, talk about one of my flat fender adventures. But
I don't have any yet.
it's, man, I tell you what,
I've always wanted one.
I've had 3, and I've only had one running one, and that was a junkyard save. But
Nice.
that wasn't a wartime. That was a 47.
I remember that
the
one.
yellow one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not talking
was
about
cool.
those today. We'll get into the CJ2s and stuff in the future.
I will say this. So the place I used to work, the company started in 1946. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with that, but the present owner, has an old World War II era Jeep that he still drives around every now and then in the summer.
Very cool.
That thing is cool.
Very
it
cool.
sounds seriously good too.
Does it?
Yeah.
Little 134 4-cylinder flathead.
Something
Just
like
go
that.
pop,
Yeah.
pop, pop, pop. Yeah.
I'll have one day. I will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One day.
You don't fit in one. I don't fit in them.
No, I
But-
haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah.
I have to just sit in the back and use sticks or something on the pedals.
So back to how these things got started. So they put out these bids, and you were saying Willys, Bantam, and Ford all answered.
Yep.
Now I've heard before, and I guess I would have to do some more research. Maybe you had something there. The Indian Motorcycles came up with something, and it was like 3-wheeled or something.
I don't recall that.
Okay.
I looked more or less just up as the 1941 Willys
Okay.
and just kind of based up and down a little bit on that.
All right. Well, okay. So who won the first bid? Come
that
on,
would've
Mr.
been
Jeep
Willys.
guy. No.
Bantam couldn't do it, so Willys got the contract.
Willys-
They couldn't keep up with it, so Ford got it.
Willys Design won the bid.
I had that
The
backwards.
government didn't think that Bantam had the resources to produce what they wanted.
That's what it was.
So they took and had Willys do it as well.
Yeah.
And then Willys couldn't keep up with production, so Ford made them as well during the war, from
Yeah.
41 to 45, or 42 to 45. And so, yeah, during World War II, Bantam was out of the picture pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then it was just Willys and Ford. But I see you're over there looking at something. Am I moving too fast for you
No,
there,
I'm
or what?
trying to find other stuff in my notes to add. Like I said, there's so much information I had here. I've got a quote we'll get to that I think is one of the... Well, there's 2 big quotes. I know one I've said before in a prior episode, but we'll get to them.
Okay.
So,
Well, anyways, Willys starts producing these things. Like we said, they couldn't produce enough of them. I don't remember exactly the date where they said, where they went in and said, okay, Ford, you need to produce the exact same thing, the Willys design. Mm-hmm. You're going to produce it, but what you're going to do is you're going to make it identical. Well, Ford said, okay, that's fine, but then they ended up stamping their name or the letter F into every single part on their Jeep.
I don't recall ever hearing that one either.
Yeah, so the Ford Jeep
Interesting.
Originally had Ford stamped in the back of it, and then even every bolt head had a letter F on it, a stylized
That's
Ford
awesome.
F. Apparently, and I don't know the reason why, but the government stepped in 42 and said, or 43, late 42, early 43, and said, both Willys and Ford, stop stamping your stuff. And then after that, they all look the same. And
Nice.
The only way you can tell is by the serial number. Although Ford, for a number of years through the war, still had a lot of their F stamp parts in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's, and the true Jeep collectors on this, and this is something I've learned. I'm on a couple of Willys Facebook pages and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And these guys, they can be very, very particular. They'll look at a picture of some wartime Jeep, and within 2 seconds, they know that one little part is not correct on it.
That's nuts. I totally believe it. I totally believe that, though.
Yeah.
Some of the attention to details, like the grill thing we were discussing on the last episode.
Well, even that, Ford designed the grill. So Willys' grill was a slat grill, which was steel bars welded together.
Mm-hmm. And I love the look of that thing.
It is a cool looking grill.
Yeah.
Ford came in and said, we can make this cheaper if we just stamp it out of a single piece of sheet metal. So, so the Ford Motor Company actually designed the original iconic Jeep grill.
I love it.
And a lot of Jeep guys don't know that.
Yeah.
But that's the truth.
And you got way more information than I was even
Because it's in my head. I didn't even look anything up. It's all in my head.
Yeah.
This is the useless knowledge that Keith and Johnny Orange has.
It's not useless. It's perfectly good, useful information.
Well, even that, something I didn't know, I just learned the other day, is the stamped steel grills, the Willys grill versus the Ford grill, there's actually a slight difference in them. And that's in the very bottom of a couple of the bars on it. It's scalloped a little further or something, and I don't remember which is which.
Interesting.
But you can actually, so a true World War II Jeep historian can look at the grills of a Willys and, when Willys started producing their own stamped steel grill and the Ford grill, and they know whether that's a Ford grill or a Willys grill.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so very minor difference. I mean, you might only be talking 3/8 of an inch or something, but
That's a significant difference, though, if you're looking at those kind of details.
yeah,
I mean, if it were anything, 1/4 inch or smaller, I could see it just being attributed to, manufacturing process.
well,
But 3/8, that's a big amount. Even a 1/4 inch, really, at that.
well, that's true. That's true. Barrett Jackson just had their big auction. I don't know how much news you've read about that.
I don't have cable or satellite. I don't get to see any of that. But I know my buddy's dad was on one of those auction shows a couple days or weeks
really?
ago. Yeah.
Apparently, this year at Barrett Jackson, a lot of subpar builds and restorations went through under the radar. They looked really pretty in pictures, but when you started looking up close, they had all the wrong parts. And I guess there was a number of flat fenders that went through
Really?
that had the wrong parts on them that sold for big money. And the same thing, some paint quality on some vintage trucks and things like that. So people online on several of the Facebook pages, and I've even seen some things on Instagram, are ripping apart this year's Barrett Jackson and going, not that Barrett Jackson did anything wrong, but that these things are going through, and then unsuspecting buyers who have a little bit too much money to burn, paying big money for something that maybe isn't exactly what they thought they're getting.
Oh, I'd have been pissed.
Yeah.
I would have been extremely angry had that happened to me.
So, I see the old arm wave over there that it's time. Let's take a quick break, John, and let's regroup after this.
Sounds good. See you in a bit.
It's cute when Rover shakes a paw for you.
Good boy.
And when he rolls over on command.
That's it, buddy.
But when he brings in fleas and ticks from the outside,
Rover.
not so much. Rover can't help what time of year it is, but ABC Home and Commercial Services can. They're the best in pets, so give them a call and they'll come around and treat your yard. ABC Home and Commercial Services, 810-794-5678. Online at abcbees.com.
So, General George C. Marshall, U.S. Army Chief of Staff during World War II, And later, U.S. Secretary of State described the Jeep brand 4x4 as America's greatest contribution to modern warfare. And then the Scripps Howard World War II reporter Ernie Pyle once said, "It did everything. It went everywhere. It was as faithful as a dog, as strong as a mule, and as agile as a goat." I wouldn't have thought goats were that agile, but apparently they are.
Great quotes.
Oh, yeah. And I hear goat, though, and I immediately think of those fainting goats. So that's probably not a good advertising point for a vehicle that's supposed to go everywhere.
Well, yeah. I think...
God, those things are funny.
I think GTO, Pontiac, but when you say goat...
I never thought of that.
Yeah. My grandfather was a World War II vet.
Okay.
And, actually, both my grandfathers, but my one grandfather on my mom's side was in Honolulu.
Okay.
Is that where Pearl Harbor? Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
Yeah.
He was in Pearl. And I have a bunch of cool old black and white photos. I actually shared a bunch to the...
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, to the museum page because the
that was
Jeep...
a while ago.
He's riding around in 2 different Jeeps in Hawaii that have the numbers on them. And I would love to find out if either of those Jeeps exist today.
Yeah.
Chances are they don't. But they have the hood numbers on them. That the hood numbers... Well, just as a side note there, a lot of these flat fender restorers... If you get an old flat fender World War II Jeep, you can lightly sand or peel the paint off the sides of the hoods, and a lot of times those old numbers or even the outline of the numbers are still there. And those numbers will usually tell you where it was delivered, where it served, and all that type of stuff. So you can get you can actually get more information from a wartime Jeep from the hood numbers than you can from the serial number.
I believe it.
So, that's kind of a neat thing to have.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves with that, though. But actually, I do want to still, with that quote, you're saying how reliable they are. My grandfather, he used to tell me that, he was in Hawaii where it was very hot. Now, he didn't see action. He came there after Pearl Harbor was bombed, and then he served in Hawaii until the end of the war. But when he was on leave or he was running around Hawaii, he would get a vehicle out of their motor pool, and he said that the Jeeps, a lot of times... would, in that hot temperature over there, would overheat. And he said the engines would seize right up. He said, much to their credit, he says they would just, a lot of times they would wait till the engine cooled down. They would put it in gear or put it in neutral, push it a little bit, put it in gear, jam it. They'd get it to unseize. They'd fill it up with cool water again. Wouldn't even put antifreeze in, just water.
Yeah.
And it'd keep running.
Nice.
So I guess that is reliable, but he said they didn't durability. He always liked the World War II Dodges better than he did the Jeeps because for the durability.
Truck's a little bit stronger of a chassis.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And as a side note, did I ever tell you that we found him in an old color video?
No.
The celebration. I'll have to tell you about that later. That's kind of a neat thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing. But so back to these Jeeps. In your research, or do you know? How did Jeep get its name?
Was it the JP or the GP was the letter designation?
General purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, GP 503, I believe, is what it was originally called,
and just everybody shortened it to Jeep.
And the Jeep character was a Popeye cartoon character.
Oh, I forgot
the
about
indestructible
that.
little guy. And he would say Jeep or something like that. Yeah.
I had that conversation with somebody over the summer, actually.
Pardon me, still getting over that cold.
What were we talking about?
But I think most historians still argue whether or not it did come from the Popeye thing or if it came from the GP thing or if it was a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Like chicken and egg here. Where did it come from?
Yeah.
We don't really know.
Well, you ever hear that one? That you talk about the chicken or the egg came first. It was a rooster on the roof of the house and it lays an egg. The house faces north to south and the rooster's facing east. What direction does the egg roll down the house?
What? Roosters don't lay eggs.
That's the joke.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what are you?
Way to ruin it, Keith.
Sorry, man.
No.
As soon as you said rooster lays an egg, I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you got to talk that part a little faster. Usually people don't catch that one.
I did that to my guys at work the other day. I did my old airplane one.
I don't know if I know this one.
Airplane crashes directly on the Canada-U.S. border.
Okay.
And they can't identify anyone. Which side has to bury the survivors?
Huh.
You can't figure it out?
No, and I feel stupid for it.
You don't bury survivors.
Wow.
Producer Andrew's over there just looking at us like, back to talking about World War II Jeeps.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, I thought it was an option. I mean, I thought it was standard, but you're saying it was an option that the 50 cal mount in the back of the Jeeps?
I thought it was.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
So these things could come with machine guns mounted in the back of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean the actual frame mount under the tub.
Okay.
So
That was a neat sound.
Producer Andrew's gonna hate you.
Yeah. Like you said, they had this under the tub. There was a round mount that they could mount a machine gun to.
Mm-hmm.
They were very rugged little vehicles, fold down windshield.
yeah.
They were meant to be able to be packaged up.
Mm-hmm.
Some believe crated up, although that Jeep in a crate thing is a myth. Jeeps were not delivered in crates. There are pictures of Jeeps in crates because they were being shipped certain places for certain things, but they didn't come from the Jeep factory in Toledo in a crate.
No, that would have been awesome though.
Yeah. So, sorry, those of you out there that are still looking to find an original Jeep in a crate, I don't care what your grandpa or your buddy or your uncle told you. They did not see one at a surplus auction.
Yeah.
It's a myth. It's been a myth forever. That's been debunked a million times.
Yeah.
Jeeps in a crate did not exist.
Yeah.
So, but people have reproduced it, the idea, and they've done it.
Oh yeah, and it's cool.
Yeah, it is neat.
Yeah. We were talking about old Willys. This just popped into my head. My welding instructor in college, he had an old military Jeep in the class, or in the, I don't really want to call it a warehouse, in the lab.
Okay.
And he got it. I remember he was telling me it was his first welding project, one of them anyways. He and his dad bought it military surplus. It had been cut in half, and he put it back together himself.
I'm going to bet that was one of the Mighty Mites and not the Jeep itself.
I thought it was a Jeep. It's been a long time, though.
It was probably one of the ones that had the four-wheel independent suspension and the little diesel engine.
I don't remember now.
Yeah, they cut those. They would draw and quarter them or cut them in half, and they would sell them. I remember a surplus place I used to go to that actually had those like that.
Really? That's cool.
They
That's
don't
a
have
shame.
anymore, but yeah. Speaking of looking at friends' Jeeps and barn find Jeeps, do you know the quickest two ways to tell the difference between a World War II Jeep and a later CJ2A?
The biggest dead giveaway I'd say would be the OD green paint that's on everything.
No. Wartime Jeeps have a 9-slot grill, tiny headlights.
Okay.
Now, the grill is interchangeable, so people could put a wartime grill on a civilian Jeep. So for your front end, if it's got a 9-slot grill, it's a wartime grill.
Okay.
Because they never made the 9-slot, to the best of my knowledge, and some Jeep guy out there might say, oh, they made 500 of them with that grill or whatever.
Yeah.
But mass-produced, they never mass-produced a Jeep with a 9-slot grill.
Okay.
For the public. These were wartime ones.
Yeah.
After the war, they went to the 7-slot grill. And they went to the standard, I forgot what the size is, 6 or 7-inch headlights. The standard round headlight for the time.
7s, I think.
Yeah, standard round headlight for the time. That was why they had to go down to the to 2 less bars, because they needed room in the grill for the larger headlights.
That makes a lot of sense.
The wartime Jeeps had headlights that actually would fold back in. They were on hinges. So you could pop the hood, you took a little wing nut, you unscrewed them, and they would pop. And that was so they could run them at night with just a little bit of light coming out of the grill.
That's awesome.
Of course, they had the blackout taillights and stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the headlights were hinged. The tub itself is the dead giveaway. Wartime Jeeps did not have a tailgate.
Really?
They're just flat on the back.
Like, no gate, but just like complete across, not an opening?
Flat steel, no opening. Yep, just flat steel.
That's
now,
kinda cool.
some people have cut tailgates into them, which is sacrilegious.
Says the guy who cut one in half.
Yeah, whatever.
In all fairness, I think most of that was rusted in half.
The CJ2A, they then started having tailgates in the Jeep tubs.
Makes sense.
So
I have to remember that.
there's
Next
the
time I'm
difference.
hunting.
And I do believe that there are a number of Jeeps, and it might have only been when they got up to the CJ 5 years later, and we're not really talking about them. So, and someone can correct me out there if the CJ2, if the tailgate was optional, it may have been. But I can tell you this, if the tub has a tailgate in it, it is most definitely not a wartime
Makes sense.
tub. So
To keep that up in mind when I'm hunting for them.
and they had little toolboxes in the back, fenders and everything too.
Nice.
So little things like that.
So I've seen like the shovel mounts and stuff they have on the sides of them, the jerry can mounts.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yeah, they're really cool little vehicles.
They are. Like I said, I'll have one day. I've always wanted one of these things since I can remember. I was so fascinated by them.
I'm a big fan of that 9-slot grill with the smaller headlights, and I think with modern technology, you put some LED headlights behind one of them suckers, and the small headlights are going to be just fine.
Get some of those projector bulbs for it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm sure you got some other Jeep stories or something you want to tell me over there. You're Mr. Jeep guy, and I'm doing most of the talking on this one, man.
You're pulling stuff out I hadn't even come across.
You got something you want to
Your
talk about?
information's way more entertaining than mine. Mine's more tech specs on stuff.
Well, that's all right. Tech specs are all right. So they had the little flathead 4-cylinder on it. They originally had a little 3-speed manual on the floor, the Spicer 18 transfer case. They did have a full floating rear axle.
Yep.
Where when they went to the civilian models, they went to the semi-floating rear axles. So, or maybe they were C-clip. I'm not actually sure on that. That one I don't know. But
That I don't either.
I know they had the 2-piece, eventually Dana 20 in the rear, and there was...
Wait, they made a 2-piece Dana 20?
Yeah, it was I don't know, they call it 2-piece axle shaft. It's a weird thing.
Goofy.
Yeah, it had like a nut on the end of it or something. I've never messed with one.
That's
They were
weird.
popular in the earlier CJs.
Thank God.
Yeah, anyway. The wartime Jeeps, I don't believe any of them came with winches, did they?
Not that I'm aware of on that. No, I had a thing somewhere here about options.
So with where the Dodge trucks did have the winches on them, the 6-wheel drive trucks, a lot of them had winches on them. And those were all
A lot
optional.
of the big ones
Yeah,
did,
the bigger trucks
Yeah.
did. But, and then, of course, what are you looking over there? Production numbers or something?
I do have a whole chart on that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's at the very bottom here.
Well.
So this goes back 1940 up to 1964 is what this chart's got.
Okay.
So we'll just call it cut off 1945. I won't go through all of them. I'll just stick with 41.
Okay.
So the Willys, the quad, that Willys quad, they made 2. So that was 1940. The Bantam initial model made 2605. The Ford GP, which is what started the whole name as we know, they had 4,456 of them. And then there were 2 variants from Willys, the MA with 1553. And then we start getting into the big production ones, the MB, 361,000.
Whoo!
Yeah, a little over that. The Ford, 277, 896. And then this chart has a World War II total line. Care to take a stab at that? This is 1940 to 1945, World War II total production numbers.
World War II total production numbers.
Yep.
Oh, man. I'm just going to throw a number out there. 790,000.
Nope.
Nope, not even close.
647,925.
Oh, come on. I was only, I was less than 200,000 off, though.
Well, by Price is Right rules, though, you went over. So I'm sorry you don't win anything.
Okay,
today.
all right. No whammies or whatever yeah. So, the early Jeeps are incredibly hard to find because of the low production. The Bantams.
And they just rusted away. A lot of them were brought overseas for other, allied countries and just lost. I mean, there's probably some in a bog somewhere, like those big tanks they restore all the time.
I did, in all of my years of my, searching around vehicles and looking in barns and finds, I did find a Bantam years ago.
Really?
Yeah. It was in a shipping container. At a guy, he was a military vehicle collector. The guy had, I think we may have talked about this before. The guy had a tank for sale, and he had other things, and pretty much he had.
I don't remember talking about a guy with a tank.
He had a bunch of vehicles on his property,
Dude.
And this guy, I don't know if he had like a tax bill or something that was due because everything was $5,000. You
could have bought a tank for $5,000.
It was a small tank, yes. But
And why didn't you?
because at that time, $5,000 to me might as well have been $1 million.
It was a tank, bro.
Yeah, I know.
That's not like kidney for that almost. I mean, not literally. I enjoy my carbonated beverages too much to risk that, but
Oh, man. Let's get a quick word from our sponsor, and then when we come back, we'll continue
we're
this
down to one
discussion.
sponsor?
Sponsors.
Oh, okay.
Hey, it sounds like it's time to swap out that old engine for something better, John.
Yeah, man, but I have so much into my trans and transfer case setup already. I don't want to change those too.
Sounds like you need to call Quick Draw Brand Adapters. They specialize in conversion bell housings for nearly all diesel and gasoline engines, including the new 2.8R Cummins.
You know, I like weird engines though. I want something different.
Then you definitely need to visit quickdrawbrand.com today. They have those hard-to-find parts. They also have used diesel engines available. You can call them at 513-446-9654.
Cool, I'll do that. See what they have. Thanks.
And we're back!
Where'd we go? Scared me. Holy crap, dude.
It did peek out the board, though, there, so...
Yeah, I heard the pop there.
Yeah, all right, so go ahead.
Again, apologies to producer Andrew when you're listening to this later. I'm going to just go ahead and blame it all on Keith.
You said you had a shout-out?
Yep, so a friend of mine, and I apologize if I'm saying your last name wrong, Michael Vanoy, however you say that. So he sent us a link a couple episodes ago to this 125cc mini Jeep gas golf cart utility vehicle.
Oh, that's right. You told me I needed to look this thing up or something,
Yeah,
right?
it's straight up. We were, it was after the Mahindra episode.
Okay.
This thing is like a deluxe Power Wheel, I almost
You
want
said
to
you sent
call
me a
it.
link or something right here?
Yeah, if you go on your Facebook, it's in there. But no, it's like a little 125cc golf cart. I mean, this thing is cool. It's got a little gas tank looking thing on the back. The tires look like the military Goodyear tires.
Okay.
It's seriously cool, man.
All right, I got it here.
it?
John sent an attachment.
Yeah.
Johnny Orange sent me information here. Okay, let's see. What am I taking a look at today? I am on the saferwholesale.com website if
Yep,
anybody's
that's it.
interested in buying one. And, an adult looks like they can drive this thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
You get a snowplow for this?
Oh, my God.
That is cool.
Dude, these things are like $3,400.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever paid that much for an actual Jeep before. No, I take that back. I did pay that much for my JK, or more
I
than
was
that
going to
for
say,
my
you had a
JK.
four-door JK. I know you paid more. If
Yeah.
That would be sweet to get a JK for that, though.
Yeah, no, I paid like $9,000
got, like,
for that. It
quad
was one
link
of the biggest
suspension
lemons
on
I
it.
ever had.
Single-piece wheels.
Oh my God, I can
thing's
see
cool,
you.
man.
Is the street legal?
I doubt it.
No, I don't think so.
It's got reverse. It looks like it has turn signal indicators. What's the video?
Oh man,
I'm not going to watch the whole thing, man.
that's funny.
I was capturing this.
All right, so no,
No,
we're not getting into videos. Speaking of shout outs here on.
Oh, well, real quick on that compliment. Yeah, thanks for sending us that link. It's not quite long enough to do a whole episode on that, but we figured we at least mention it for you. So that is cool. Thanks for the link.
Did you mention who told you?
Yeah, Michael Vanoy.
Oh, Michael
Vanoy.
Vanoy. All right. Well, thank you. That is
Yeah,
pretty
appreciate
cool.
it, man. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah. On Apple Podcasts, Metalhead 2011 says, actually, kind of a long thing, just says great off-road show by guys like us, and then he kind of extrapolates on a little more, or she, I'm pretty sure it's a he, but thank you very much. Very, very nice, shout out there. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
So, and we had on the YouTube channel, I'm not going to pull it up right now because I don't want to automatically start playing videos or anything. I know we had...
Why? What were you watching last?
No, I'm just saying it might actually...
It was How to Bake a Cake, wasn't it? With pink frosting?
I don't know what you're talking about, but, but if I pull it up right now and Keith and Johnny Orange start talking and then I hear it in the background while we're talking, your universe is going to implode or something.
It's possible.
I couldn't listen to you and I talk while you and I are talking.
I can't do it either.
So, but we've had a lot of really nice comments on there on YouTube. I think we're going to stay on YouTube. Our plans are getting accelerated for a studio area. Hopefully, within a few episodes.
I know we were discussing a new location potentially, so we'll be seeing how that goes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. 4x4 news, buddy. You got anything before we end this on Jeeps again? But you got anything in 4x4 news right now?
Nothing really. As we discussed earlier, I've been delving down that rabbit hole of that other transmission, but we're not going to get into that today.
No?
No.
All right.
That rabbit hole cost me about 2 hours of time last night and about an hour and a half today.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I could half rebuild the thing now.
Yeah.
But
I haven't read anything really major. The only thing I would say, and I'm going to tie this kind of into museum minutes, that our This Day in Off-Road History posts have become incredibly popular. That one we talked about in the last episode with the Ford, the 48 Ford F1 introduction. That post alone's already had like 52,000 views. And
jeez.
yeah.
Did it make, I know we were talking after the show, did it hit 50,000 within 24 hours?
Yes.
Last I saw it was at like 40 something.
Yeah, I believe it did. It kind of got out 51, 52, and then since it's buried enough in the older posts now that it's only slowly creeping up now.
Gotcha. Nice.
A lot of our other posts are doing the same thing. They're hitting in the 13,000, 20,000 range. People are
Sweet.
People are loving these This Day in Off-Road History. I'm still looking for ones. If you look at today's recording date of the 23rd here, of course, this is going to upload here in a few more days, but the recording date of the 23rd on the Museum of Off-Road Adventures Facebook page, This Day in History, 2 years ago in 2018, at the King Abdul Aziz, I think is how you pronounce it, Abdul Aziz.
The one we talked about that opened the museam?
No,
different
this
guy?
different one.
Oh, okay.
It's the King Abdul Aziz Camel Beauty Contest in Saudi Arabia.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 camels were discontinued or disqualified because their owners Botoxed their lips.
Such a shame. You know, the performance-enhancing chemicals, that's just not cool, man, in any sort of show.
So,
especially in a camel.
What's the tie to the off-road? It was a stretch. I do
off-road transportation.
I do a lot of research into these posts. I usually can find something interesting on that date in history with the 6 or 8 sources I'm using within 15 or 20 minutes. For like an hour, I searched for something interesting that happened on January 23rd. Could not find it. And I finally ran across that. And I said, well, so then I said to myself, well, just because I was curious, Google rabbit hole.
Yeah.
What was the first animal because animals obviously came before vehicles. What was the first animal we domesticated to ride? And I thought maybe it was the camel. No, it was the horse and ox, which were about 4,000 BC, and then the camel about 3,000 BC. But it's an off-road vehicle or off-road transportation, right?
I'll say, and again, you talk about weird random stories popping in your head. So I remember watching some documentary on military special forces. I want to say it was the British SAS. I could be wrong. It was the U.S.
Solid axle swap, gotcha.
No. Oh, wow. No. What? So it was a special ops team.
Okay.
And they had this mission they had to drive through the desert. They had one vehicle that had to be as quick and as light as possible. They stripped every other bolt out of this thing. They cut all the slats out the grill. They took everything out to get one Jeep to carry the entire team and all their supplies there and out on the fuel that was in it, with enough left to idle into, their final destination when they got back.
With a Jeep.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, they stripped this thing down to barely holding together.
That something you mentioned, and I don't remember if it was at the beginning of this podcast or before we even started recording, is where basically it all started. Mm-hmm. As we know, four-wheel drive vehicles go all the way back to 1903.
Yep.
But I'll agree with you that the Jeep in 41 is what really springboarded four-wheel drive vehicles into the public's eye, because right after World War II, and I know we didn't touch on really even 10% of what we could have about the World War II Jeeps, but after World War II, Jeep continued making basically the same model into the CJ2A. Mm-hmm. First the CJ2, then the CJ2A.
Yeah.
And, GIs came back and they would buy those new, the ones that could afford a new one, or they bought military surplus wartime Jeeps. And they would take them, running on the sand with them, out in the woods and things like that. And that's where off-roading as a hobby really, really got its wings.
Yeah.
And, so the Jeep, like you said, started all. And then, like last episode, Toyota Land Cruiser. Mm-hmm. right after the war, Toyota was given a wartime Jeep to reverse engineer.
Yeah.
So the entire lineage of the Toyota Land Cruiser and the entire lineage of Jeeps up to today are all because of a wartime vehicle that was originally designed by Bantam Motors back in 1940.
Yeah. All traces back.
In 45 days.
Yeah. 75.
Oh, I thought you said, okay,
Yeah,
75 days.
Yeah.
But
And that's start to finish.
Isn't that
one of
amazing?
the biggest issue they struggled with was to reduce the weight to the Army specifications.
Okay.
And they went as far as shortening bolts just to make them work. Lighter panels just to try and get to it. And the final version of it was something like 400 pounds over the requirement still.
But it still worked for what they needed.
Yeah.
And well, like I said, and that was history. I mean, that's where it all came from.
And then the crazy part, so this is of the original production of the MB models. Take a stab at what the original price was.
To the government,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with like $1,800 a piece.
$738.74.
Less than $1,000.
Yep.
Wow. Man, I would love if you could just go into a Jeep dealership today and buy a new Jeep for under $1,000.
That would be great.
Even a stripped out model like that.
That would be great, yeah.
You know,
Something nice, bare bones, simple, basic. You know, beat the heck out of it and still keep going. That would be great.
You know, we're specifically talking about the World War II Jeeps here, but the flat fenders in the CJ2A and then the CJ3 and the CJ3B, all by extension, are essentially the wartime Jeep that's been updated a little bit each time.
Yeah.
If you say that, the CJ3B, do you know how long that was in production?
That was the shortest one, wasn't it?
That was the one with the tall hood, the kind of ugly one.
I don't remember a whole lot
That was the
about
last
that one.
flat fender that was produced.
Yeah. No, I don't know offhand, though.
Take a guess. What do you think the last year for the tall hood CJ3B design was? I'm gonna give you that hint.
What
the
year did
design.
it start?
Oh man, I want to say 48 or 49. I could be wrong without looking. I didn't look it up. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I might have a link here that has that.
Okay. Well, it
it.
was one of the more unpopular models that a lot of the Jeep guys didn't like the tall hood. They needed that for the new Hurricane engine.
Throw it out 1972.
1999.
What?
Yeah, it was produced under license from Jeep by
Okay.
Mitsubishi and Mahindra all the way to 99. It's part of that Mahindra thing that we talked about a couple episodes ago. Mahindra took that 3B design and they kind of redesigned it, but they redesigned it with CJ7 characteristics to create the Roxor.
Nice.
And so it's essentially still being produced today in the form of the Mahindra Roxor that
like
was
it.
updated. But the actual 3B flat fender,
Yeah.
that fenders, hoods, all of that was produced all the way up to 1999.
That's crazy.
So yeah, these flatties, I mean, they built something that lasted. They built something.
Oh, yeah.
Couple of quick points of interest. You can fit a World War II flat fender Jeep into the bed of an 8-foot bed pickup truck.
Seriously?
Yes, you can put ramps on the tailgate and drive one up in there.
That's awesome.
There's pictures online of guys that have barn find rescued them, taken them home. You can put them in the bed of an 8-foot bed pickup truck.
It's got me thinking.
You're like, I don't like backing up a trailer, so I'm just going to start carrying one in Dad's truck.
Well, no, you see all these things about the, the Fords and with the new heated tailgate options.
Oh, yeah, it's your spare, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you just carry one of these and you're fine.
Oh, okay, all right.
And it's tough enough to pull the truck home, too.
Oh, man, that's so bad. That's so bad.
It's funny.
Yeah, it is. Aftermarket support for the wartime Jeeps is huge. You can buy an entire new body from MD1 Enterprises.
I don't know if Aguila makes them for these, but I know they make out a lot of the Aquila.
Aquiloo?
Yeah, that one.
Aquila.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking about later.
Aquiloo out of Canada makes aluminum tubs for these. That's correct.
Yeah, I didn't know if they made them this far back, but I know like the CJs and the YJs, TJs, you can get those.
Yeah, there's in the Philippines, there's a company that makes stainless steel tubs.
Ooh, I'd rather have that. That's gonna be expensive.
You can polish them and they look shiny. No, they bring them here. There's importers that already have them here.
Brushed stainless, no polish.
Okay. Go with the DeLorean look.
Yes, I hate shiny.
Which, hey, real quick, that's not 4x4 news, but it's automotive news. Did you see in the news that DeLorean is possibly reopening?
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember reading that a while back.
DeLorean Motor Company still exists on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in Texas now. It was originally out of Ireland, but one company purchased the entire remaining stock of DeLorean.
Nice.
And they're building continuation cars. Well, now they're basically saying that, yes, it is happening where the DeLorean's going back into...
Sweet.
It's limited production, but
Yeah, it's still out
brand
of my budget.
new
but-
factory warranty DeLoreans.
Hey, if they got one of 4x4,
Oh,
they're
they're already building them now, but these are going to be like all new builds. Is what they are.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was excited. I found a turbo for one of those things. I didn't know they ever had a turbo option.
It was a aftermarket or it was a dealer
No,
upgrade.
it's branded. It would have had to been dealer. This was like branded
It was right at the end of
DeLorean. Yeah, that was cool. I'd love to have one of those one day, but
Absolutely.
I'd be torn between actually using it and keeping it for show. Now, I'm gonna say it right here, right now. If I ever get one, I'm using it.
A DeLorean.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'll use it.
Drive it every day.
Maybe not every day, but
Yeah.
my winter car.
Man, I will say this. I want to talk about real quickly. This is a story about me being incorrect about something about Jeeps.
Okay.
Something I only found out.
You finally learned there was no Wrangler in '96.
Yeah, there you go. I was on some off-road page on Facebook. Don't even remember which one it is, okay? One of the groups. And there was this guy talking about something or other, swapping. My memory escapes me a little bit, but I think it was something along the lines of he was going to swap this engine, trans and transfer case into this old CJ. And I just commented, you're going to have to either change your transfer case or you're going to have to change your front axle because the first driver drop, because he was planning on using a driver drop transfer case. I said the first driver drop Jeep came out in '87, or open top Jeep with the Wrangler.
Yeah.
Mr. Rick Payway himself, the Jeep God, who writer for Peterson's Four Wheel and Off Road, JP Magazine, all that, editor of JP Magazine, comments to my comment and says, no, the first driver's drop Jeep came out in 1940 or something like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Apparently, the very early, and I don't remember if it was the Pygmy or the Bantam, the very first ones did have a driver drop front axle, but for whatever reason, they switched it over to a passenger drop axle for the production models.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they did
Very
actually.
interesting.
The first Jeep started out with a driver drop
Nice.
axle, and then for the next 40 years, they are all passenger drop.
And then it came back full circle to what's proper.
So
driver drop.
it just shows to you those guys out there that are just this insane knowledge
yeah.
of these things.
That'd be cool. If he's listening to this, we'd love to have an opportunity to talk to you on the show sometime.
Oh yeah,
That'd be
sure.
cool.
You'd always be welcome to come talk on the show. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be awesome.
But John, what else? Do you got anything else going on about these things besides the fact that you and I both need one in our life? Again, for me, because I've had, like I said, I've had the Ford GPW, I've had the Slack Grill, I had a CJ2A, but
I've got a huge long list of stuff that I want one day. But I've got an idea for a question to end this with.
Question for me or question for our
Question for them. And you.
What is that the
the
Royal
watching?
We or the Royal Them?
No, we're having a conversation with that little
with
blue
them,
thing there.
with them
Yeah.
over there. Yes, I see. Okay.
You got to pay attention to who we're talking to. Yeah, we're talking to us, but we're talking to them too.
Okay, we're talking to the YouTubers.
Yeah.
What's the question?
Well, if we're done, I'm going to pose this because we're going to end it on this.
Oh, I'm good.
So I'm stealing this from your Mora post. So do you off-road on a horse, camel, ox, or an elephant? Send us your pictures and let us know. And thanks for listening. Have a good one, everybody.